Hello, hello, welcome. My name is Becky and it is episode 8 of my knitting podcast. Pull up a few because we have got a lot to get through. It is tightly packed today, tightly packed. First things first, let's talk about what I'm wearing, which is obviously my Tain sweater. I'm going to stand up a little bit so you can get a better look. I'm doing like a bit of an odd crouch, but here you go. I love this sweater. What is not to love? Eagle-eyed and returning viewers will recognise this because I talked about the yarn last year when I was doing a secret test knit for the Creabea, and this is she. It's now a little bit less than secret because it is officially being published in Lina Magazine's 52 Weeks of Sweaters, and now I get to share a little bit about obviously what it looks like. I have worn it pretty much non-stop, so you can probably see already that there's quite a lot of pilling along sleeves, along like the side bit here, and that is just because it's been loved so much. I think the shape of this is excellent. I love the colour, and the yarn is so soft. I think this is one of my favourite yarns I've ever knit with. It was from West Knits and it was called, I want to say it was called Tandem, and that's because it is a DK weight yarn. So you see what they did there. It was honestly a true pleasure to knit this one up. The neckline for this, or the kind of mock neck, is a feature that I've wanted to knit for a really long time, and whenever I see a mock neck, I'm drawn in. That is a specific design feature that just really gets me. That, and then the way that it sort of slightly melts into the, again, half fisherman's rib raglan, and then it's got these like racing stripes almost underneath. You can kind of see as I'm showing, and then the same thing mirrored on the inside of the sleeve. I think it's really simple, really like classy, really effective in lots of different ways, and it was such a pleasure to make it, and it's such a pleasure to get to wear it. And there's honestly not much more to say about it than that. I think if you are interested in making this, that you can pre-order the book from Lina Magazine. I'm not sure if it'll be available to order or to buy individually, and I'm almost tempted myself to get that book because there's just loads and loads of other sweaters in there that really appeal to me. There's like a really beautiful kind of cross cable, all over cross cable style sweater that I think it looks really intricate and really like just really lovely, really beautiful, and I could definitely see myself making one of those. So I'm tempted to like go and get the book, and maybe you are as well. Obviously, we are now in 2026. I was going to talk a little bit today about my 2026 knitting resolutions. I'm not going to do that so much as like a section, but I'll talk about one of them now. And one of them, just off the back of talking about this test knit, is to do less test knits overall. I think I've really enjoyed doing test knits in the past. I've really enjoyed supporting certain designers and getting to meet people in little communities. I think since I started test knitting, it feels like it's slightly changed. Like, I think it used to be that you would have a bit more of a sense of community in those chats. I've done some test knits where nothing gets set up and you don't get to really speak to other people who are also making the same thing. And I think, test knitting is free labour, which I don't begrudge doing. I enjoy it. I don't really care that much. I'm very much like a process knitter, so I don't do it for any other reason than just to enjoy the process. And I've enjoyed also kind of like a bit of insight into the designing side of things. I don't think I've ever been on a test knit when I haven't seen somebody give like a little bit of feedback about it not being quite right. And it's nice to see how designers respond to that feedback. So I've definitely gained a lot out of being a test knitter every single time I've done it. But what I have noticed is that it's quite rare for me to really like the output of a test knit. Sometimes I kind of get drawn in by, yeah, I want to support this designer. They've like done things in the past that I've liked, or there's been times when you get like a discount code on yarn that I want to try. But then quite a lot of the time I've come out of it and really not enjoyed the end product, which is why it's nice to have this one maybe as a final test knit that I've done, where I have really enjoyed both the process, both like the sense of community on the chat, and also the end product. That is just, it feels quite rare. It's definitely not been my experience every single time round. So it might be a really nice one to end on, or at least to end on for a while. So for this year, at the very least, I'm probably not going to do any more test knitting. That's one resolution. Let me talk about another finished object that I have next. And this is the same designer, but oh my god, are you ready? Some people will have seen this already because I did a video at the sort of like end of last year, beginning of 2026, where I decided to clear out loads and loads of works in progress that I have. And this was one of them. So some people will have seen it, but if you haven't, here is my finished Lanark sweater. Oh, just look at her. Isn't she absolutely magnificent? This, again, when I was getting ready to film this episode, I went downstairs to try and find this, and it was like crumpled up at the edge of my bed because I've been wearing it a lot recently. So I had to kind of like attempt to smooth it out. But yes, I finally did get it finished. It's like a story of 2025 for me because I cast it on the very first day of last year, and then I finished it on like the 28th or the 29th of December. So it almost took me the full year to make. This is like the project of that year. And I really wanted to finish it before going on like a end of year walk with some friends of mine. And luckily I did manage to get that done. The yarn that I used for this, I have talked about it before obviously, but it was from the New Lanark spinning mills. So again, that felt really nice that it was like yarn from New Lanark for the Lanark sweater. And I think that choice of yarn was really good because it feels really hardy. Like it's warm for the outside, it's kind of rustic, so I don't think it's going to get kind of like if it got snagged on a bush or something when I was hiking through, then it's not going to end up being too damaged, I don't think. And the sort of little speckle to it just makes it, again, I think a little bit more interesting. And I think it actually makes the, again, half fisherman's rib show up really nicely. So I honestly couldn't be happier with it. I think it's also a lesson in, I had to like tear it back, redo it a few times, but now I have absolutely nothing about it that makes me feel sad in the work that I did. I feel so proud of it, and I'm so glad that it was finally finished. I hope you enjoyed watching that kind of like journey with me, because there's just been so many moments where I've like made foolish choices or where I've gone a bit like destructive with it. So it's also been a fun one to document as well as a fun one to make, and definitely a fun one to wear. So yeah, those are both of my finished objects. I have so many kind of like random works in progress. I started that series, sort of a series, where I just challenged myself to finish as many as possible. And I am going to do, I think, a few more videos like that where I just like set a time frame and then see how many I can get through. And this leads me on actually to another resolution of mine for this year, which is I am going to buy no new clothes at all this year. Last year, I was on like a bit of a yarn ban, and I didn't really like stick to that. I did buy some yarn over the course of the year. It was a lot less than in previous years. So the spirit of it was still kind of fulfilled in that I brought a lot less yarn in. But there have been skeins of things that I bought last year that I haven't knit up yet. So it's not like a total net zero stash year. It's been a little bit all over the place. But I think I am going to be pretty rigid about this goal. Every new bit of clothing that I get this year will be something that I've made. So for me, that means I will be buying yarn again. I will be trying to maximize the use of what I have in my wardrobe. So anything that I'm not really wearing right now, I want to like repurpose and remake. And I am still going to keep putting content like that out here on my channel as well. So it's not just going to be totally brand new knitted things. I am going to try to keep up repurpose, rewear, upcycling, that sort of thing. And I hope that that still really appeals to people. I think there is like, there's a little bit of a tendency to overproduce in some ways in the knitting world. And I really try not to get swept up in that, which is like, how much can you make and like how much can you get through? I've been thinking about this a lot with everything I made in 2025 style videos. I really enjoy that sort of content. Like I really enjoy watching it. I love seeing what people have made. And it probably says more about me as a viewer than anybody who's making that content. But it can feel a little bit competitive. And I haven't made a video like that. I honestly couldn't bring myself to go over old ground in that way. I just couldn't do it. I am going to put out a quick short of everything I made, which is like a flick through, because I think that's fun to have like a little catalogue. But I couldn't face sitting down here and talking about everything that I made. I don't like to look back, I think we should always be striving forward. I have watched a lot of people's videos and have really enjoyed a lot of them. So it's not a criticism of anybody who's making a video like that. I think, 100% go off, and I love when people make it creative. I just want to avoid in and of myself like that natural competitive instinct of like, I made 30 sweaters this year. It just absolutely is not how I do things. I think I maybe only made 2 sweaters last year. This one. No, I made my ranunculus as well, actually. So maybe I only made like 3 sweaters last year. I don't care. It's not for me. Like, I do not care. Okay. We're going to talk about more works in progress. So even though I did that like kind of clear out video, I wasn't ever saying to myself like I wouldn't cast on something new. So I have cast on some new things. Just before I go into that, one thing I want to let people know is that I have launched memberships on my channel. And this is, again, related to another goal that I have for this year, knitting goal that I have for this year, which is to, I think, engage more with the knitting community, to build more connections with people who share the love for this hobby. And I think also to break down a little bit of like, I think the screen divide from doing an episode, like a podcast episode like this, and then having like connection with people who comment and who subscribe, like that means a lot to me, that I'm not just kind of like talking into the void, that people are talking back. So the intention with launching the memberships was if you did want to support the growth of the channel and support the continuation of the channel, there's a few different options there which aren't very expensive. So there's a way for you to do that if that is interesting to you, if that is something that you're in a place to do, is something that I'd be really grateful for. But also it's a chance to maybe be a bit more open there, have a bit more of a conversation, to also be a little bit less guarded about what I say. Not that it's going to be particularly, I don't have anything particularly controversial or egregious to say, but it's a bit more of a trusted place, I think, for me and for anyone else who's there. So I wanted to let you know that I've done that. If you're interested in joining as a member, there's a little join button, I think, just by the like or the share option underneath the video. So you can have a look there at what available options there are. And I'm also going to put out some specific members only content as well along the lines that I'm talking about. So you can have a flick through and see what's available. And if I have done what I plan to do, then by the time this podcast episode goes out, there will already be content at all levels for anybody who does join. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. But it does tie in with a general overall goal for 2026 to engage a bit more widely beyond the screen. And I'm also thinking about volunteering at some yarn festivals and stuff like that, all in line with that wider goal. So maybe there'll be more of a chance to meet more people, which I love to do. Love to meet people over the course of this year. Let's talk about works in progress. The first one that I want to talk about, I have shown before on the channel, and it is my Moss Path cardigan. I've said a few things about this in the past. I am making this cardigan, which was published, I think, again in Lina magazine, and this is what it looks like so far. So we've got body, and we have one sleeve. This is the second sleeve here that I kind of started on and then stopped. And then also it will have a double knit button band that I'll need to pick up stitches for. What I've done with this, and I don't regret it, but it has obviously made it slightly more complicated, is that I wanted to make it in this Rowan yarn, which I've forgotten exactly what the makeup of it is, but it's obviously this kind of slightly fluffy, I think it's mohairy teal yarn. I wanted this to be a cardigan. I like this cardigan design, and I thought I'll put them together, even though this yarn is Aran weight, and I think that the pattern actually wants you to do DK weight. So the way that I got around this is did a gauge swatch with a completely different needle size. So I have the gauge swatch here. This is my swatch that I did, and obviously got gauge with a lower needle size. To be fair, I've just thought this was me knitting flat, and I obviously have done most of the cardigan is knit flat apart from the sleeve. So that's a bit of a light bulb moment, because maybe that's the reason why, as I've said to people before, I'm not super happy with this sleeve as it stands. It's, when I put it on, it is quite long. So looking at this sleeve that I've got here, it goes down maybe 2 inches longer, which looks a little bit like I'm a little boy wearing his dad's suit to work or something. It's just not quite right. And I would just steek or cut a little bit out of the sleeve and then graft back together if it was just the length, or I would obviously just undo the ribbing and then that's not too much of a hassle. But what I didn't like is that the sleeve is quite long and baggy. So this, again, I'm using this as an example, but this sleeve is kind of perfect for me. It's not like tight and tapered, but it's, you know, it's very straight and just has a little bit of tapering to it. Whereas this one was very like baggy, basically. And that was having done it post-blocking. What I have done since then, the last time I showed it to people, last time I showed it on the channel, I hadn't done this like bottom rib. So I just finished that off last night. I absolutely love the rib for this. I'm such a fan of like a very deep rib. Like a thin little rib gives me the ick. 100% gives me the ick. Whereas this, that's tasty. What I am going to do next is like pick up for the button band. And again, one of the reasons why this is slightly annoying that I am doing different needle size and different gauge is that the pattern says when you're doing a double knit piece of work that most people have a slightly different gauge from when they do the stocking stitch in the round or flat. So it says go down a needle size to do that. And it also says do a gauge swatch to check. I don't know the answer to this, but if I do a gauge swatch, a needle size down for the cardigan, for the button band, I don't see how I can do a gauge swatch that emulates what my gauge is going to be like in double knitting. I'd have to do some double knitting. It's definitely something I should just look up. Like it might just be very simple, but I haven't quite figured that out in my head, and I haven't quite got to the point where I have realised, I haven't quite like figured out whether I actually want to do that gauge swatch or not. So stay tuned for that, that fun bit of decision making. And also, I was going to do a bit more on this last night, but the thought of it, like, you see how you have to pick up from the right hand side, which is like here, all the way up and over and along, and then down to the left. That is like a crazy amount of time. That is so long. Like, I'm going to be sat there for 2 hours just picking up stitches. I might have to break it up or give myself like a little reward halfway through. Like if I get up the right hand side, then I can sit and do something else. And then I can do the rest. It's like so much of progressing with knitting projects for me is like negotiation, where I'm like, okay, if I just do this little bit that I really don't like, then I can reward myself with a type of knitting that I do like. There's no way to live. There must be a way around this. Are there people who love picking up stitches? Who are you? And what's your deal? How did you get to that point of self-actualization that is something you enjoy? Teach me your ways. However, having said all of that, I did like a little try on of this last night, and I am really happy with it. I think it looks really good. I'm still thrilled with the colour. I wish I could tell you how soft. I mean, I can tell you. I wish you could feel how soft this is, because I know some people find like mohair a bit much. I just think it's lovely. I just think it's lovely. I love the like fuzzy little halo of it. I just think it's amazing. I really want to get it done before this cold season is out, because I want to get some wear on it this side of summer. So actually that, I'm putting a lot of energy into this right now. I need to like get past this mental block with picking up stitches. I have one other work in progress that I'm going to talk to you about now as well. I think I cast this on in 2026, so I think it's my first cast on of the year. I did talk about the yarn in a previous episode. Oh, just before I show it to you, let me just show you the bag that it's in, because this is a bag, it's like a tote bag that my mother-in-law made. I think I was going through like a real pink and brown era at a certain point, so I love this. I used to use it all the time. I still use it all the time. But I also started collecting, putting all my badges on here, and I'm not going to go through them all, but there's just like a few that I think are so good. I think my favourite one is this. I'd love a new gas cooker. Unbelievable. And then there's ones that I've gotten from different people. Like I got this one from my friend Megan. This is like for being a supporter of the Woolly Good Festival a few years ago. There's Feminines. Love. I got this one from my friend Louise. I got this one from my sister and my mum after I did my second marathon as part of like a collection of little well done gifts. So I love that. And then there's also Blood Donor Award. There's just tons on this bag that I love. So I'm a big sucker for a collection, as people know. Anyway, inside is the start of my Alex hood, which is a Knitting for Olive design, and I am knitting it in a Zakami DK weight, I think merino DK. Thought I was going to sneeze. Sorry. So as part of this sort of fade set, which was a set of 3 variegated skeins of yarn, there's this like pinky variation, then there's this like slightly grayer with dark bits in it, and also little dabs of the pink as well. And actually the third skein is around here, so I'm just going to grab that. And then this is the third skein of yarn, which is obviously this quite dark blacky browny colour. And yes, it is 100% fine merino. I haven't yet tried this on. It's obviously not yet done, but let me just put it on and I will show you the vision. So it's going to be a hood, obviously, goes up and over the head, and then this is like a scarfy bit that you can wrap around you. Voila. When I first thought about doing this, I thought it would be the perfect thing to do this fade in, because I thought that would be so fun to have the pink going through the grey and then up to the sort of black over the hood. What hasn't worked out quite so well is that, like, just due to the construction, there is the pink goes up and along, and then I had to switch to the middle skein, which means that there's this kind of like jump in colour from here to the hood, and then also it is quite like abrupt, the change in colour again from the pink to the grey, like in the bits of the scarf. What I did do, which I genuinely thought was genius at the time, I don't know if it probably has done some good because I obviously ran out, but I knit both of these end bits together in the same way that you would potentially do 2 together socks. So starting at the end and then working both bits up, pulling from the centre of a cake of yarn and then from the outside. So I didn't cut the yarn into 2 bits or have 2 separate balls, just had the one ball and then knit them both up together. And I thought that was absolutely genius. It, I think, has been obviously a good call, because then I did have to switch over. So I know at least that they both finish in sort of roughly the same place, which would have been a bit harder to do if I'd done it left than right. But maybe really what I should have done with this set of yarn is something that was just end to end, like a big shawl or like a big scarf, where it would naturally go from one to the next. I thought I was going to be clever, and I don't think it looks terrible, but it does have that little jump, as I say. The original yarn or suggested yarn for this pattern was to have a fingering weight and a mohair held together and to make a DK weight. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, why would I have 2 strands of yarn to do that? Why wouldn't I just go straight and make it with the DK weight one? And actually, this is one where I think that it would have benefited from having both those together. I think that fabric would have been a lot lighter. And even though I'm quite pleased with this to some extent, some of the subtlety of the way that the ribbing is moving, is moving in the piece is kind of lost. So, and that's partly because this is so variegated that it's actually a bit hard to tell. But so for example, here at the back, you've got the ribbing kind of growing out of the back of the skull, out of the cerebellum, which obviously is the name of the back of the back part of the brain. And then you've also got at the sides, around the hood, this border that's growing with the ribbing melding into it. And some of the subtlety of that is just totally lost because I chose this very variegated, very speckled yarn. I always say I just love the look of it as a hank of yarn. It's just, who can argue with that? It's just beautiful. But when you actually come to knit it up, I find it almost disappointing almost every single time to see how it looks eventually, which is a real shame. I need to figure out some formula for getting this right. I did used to think that variegated yarn looked better when it was crocheted. That's obviously a very big simplification, but I often was happier when I did big, intricate crochet pieces with yarn that looks like this than I have been, especially doing flat stocking stitch. Anyway, I need to bring in the dark colour shortly. I'll probably do that sort of staggered and do a couple of rows and have it more naturally fade into the dark. And then the hood continues to grow up the sides and then gets seamed over the top, which again I think is how the skull forms when you're a baby, when you're in the womb. So seems fitting that you would make a hood like that in the same way that you make your skull. Hood is just a skull for the hair. I was making progress on this last night whilst I finished off watching the Traitors UK. And if you haven't seen the final yet, A, what are you doing? But B, I'm not going to spoil it. But what I will say is that there is so many good knits worn by cast members over the course of the season. The ones that I'm really inspired by. First off, there's the big chunky knit cardigan that Jade wears early on, and it's got these visible seams, maybe not seams. That is very inspiring to me. That is very intriguing to me. I love it. Then there's 2 pink knits that I'm thinking of. One which is worn by Stephen, and then the second one worn by Rachel. Both very different, slightly different pinks, both amazing. I really like Rachel's big open cable jumper, and then I absolutely love Stephen's jumper that is the exact same shade as his face. That boy. And then the last knit that I'll mention from the Traitors that I thought was super inspiring is obviously Claudia Winkleman's like patterned yoke monochrome number. Just incredible. All of those, like, extremely inspiring to me. All of those giving me a lot to ponder on, a lot to think about. Okay, acquisitions. I haven't bought anything new for myself, I think, since I last did a podcast episode, but I did get some stuff for Christmas. So let me just show you that right now. What I'm going to start with. I'm going to start with, this actually isn't yarn, but this was like a little present that my sister made that I thought was really cute. So I'm just going to show you. She made me like a little voucher for 15 yarn buck. And on the terms and conditions it says, can be exchanged or redeemed in store with presence of sister. So yeah, 15 yarn bucks. I won't spend it all at once. I will. Then I have from my parents-in-law, they got me this box which has 2 50-gram balls of yarn in it and a pattern to make some leg warmers. So if I just take out the yarn to show you that on its own, it's kind of a lovely deep green colour. It is extremely, extremely soft, and I thought it was very thoughtful and nice. Whether I am actually going to make the leg warmers or not remains to be seen. I do like leg warmers, and I think the pattern for this is like, it is really fun. Let me just show the picture. So that's what they will look like. I really like this. It reminds me of like, I don't know what the origin of this was, but when I was at school, people used to write that S that was like triangular S. It was like a graffiti thing. And I'm like, was it a gang sign that we as kids didn't understand? I don't know. So it kind of looks a bit like that to me. If you know, you know. This is from a company called Temporary Measure. Yeah, I think it looks like very straightforward, obviously. So it will either become those leg warmers if I don't think of anything else, or I will not struggle to find something else that I will use that yarn for. I think it's going to be really lovely. Then I have, as another gift, this one was from my sister who went on a trip to Australia, and specifically to Tasmania, and then she brought me back this yarn from Tasmania. So it's from a place called Salamanca Wool Shop. This is what it looks like. It is in the colour Flame, which seems appropriate. It's 8-ply. This is probably not a colour that I would like typically buy for myself, but now that I have it, I'm a bit obsessed with it. I don't know what I'm going to make out of it, and I have 2 balls of this. This is, I want to say, this is 100 grams, and it is how many yards? It's 100 grams and it's 236 meters. So I've got like just over 500 meters of this. And we'll have to have a think. Have to again have a think about what that's going to be. But I love yarn as tourism. I love yarn that's come from like fun places. So that is, I think, a really special Christmas gift. Those are all the things that I have got from Christmas, and my yarn ban is over, so I can now start to buy with reckless abandon once again. That, I think, brings me to the end of everything that I had to chat about today, and all that remains for me to do is to say thank you so much for watching, as always. It is nearly 1 year since I started on YouTube, which is kind of amazing. I wasn't sure what to expect when I first put my first episode out, and I have learned a crazy amount over the course of the year. I have really enjoyed making both these podcast episodes and everything else, and being creative about what I put out there and how I talk about my hobby. And I have absolutely loved to engage with everybody who's been here before, everybody who's coming along. So there's no risk of me slowing down in 2026. Hope the start to your year has been absolutely wonderful. I hope that you had an excellent Christmas and an excellent New Year. And if you don't celebrate, I hope you've had just a great break and a great sort of period of refresh and renewal. I've been thinking a lot about the concept of winter and what it means and what we should be doing in this time, and trying to both commit to what I care about, but also to give myself a bit of grace. And I hope everyone else is doing the same. So, New Year's resolutions, ambitions for 2026. Like, I encourage all of these things. I don't hate them, but they're not something to ruin your life. They're something to enhance your life. That's a little bit of a tangent. Bless you all. Thank you all. And see you very soon.